Hello everyone. Welcome to another part of What If Deku Ran an Orphanage. If you enjoy the story, please like, subscribe, and share the video. It really helps me out. I did not write the story. The original writer is Kyodon. Please go support them. Now let us dive in. The last team. Team E consisting of Ida, Kaminari, Mina, and Siro. We're now in the fake city. Starting the last exercise. None of them were in good spirits, however. Not even Mina. Not because they would be facing another grossly overpowered child, but because of the conversation that had taken place not too long ago. So are we gonna hit the kids? Siro asked. I mean, we might have to, Kaminari said sheepishly, seeming unsure of himself. Well, I don't want to. Mina objected. Overpowered or not, they're still kids. And all we have to do is show them some affection. We're no strangers to love, so we should show them some too. As much as I would like for that to be the case, I doubt Principal Nizu would allow for this to be so simple. Ida spoke up in a determined yet still somehow unsure voice. You know the rules and so do I. The principal might have made this test knowing that and planned it out accordingly. So you think we might have to hurt them? Siro scratches his head. That's messed up. Don't think that I'll give up that easily. I'm never gonna give up. I'm gonna find the kid and hug the crap out of them. Mina said with full determination. And with that, Mina ran off to find the kid. Wait. You have to wait for us. You have no idea what's up ahead. Ida ran after her with the rest of the team following. Back in the observation room. The mood was still somewhat downtrodden, however, it seems most of the class had moved on, hoping that if they paid attention to the last exercise it would lift the mood up a bit. I've never seen Mina so down before. Kirishima thought as he remembered how upset she looked. Mina always had this attitude about her. Always this optimistic person that would do her best to make sure she was never gonna let you down. But now she herself seemed down. He wished he could do something about it. He never wanted to see his friend like this, but honestly, he didn't know what to do here. It seems Mrs. Sido is quite determined. How fortunate for her that this mission will not require them to attack the child. Niza saw his students take a sigh of relief. Because they can't. Wait, what? Toru asked. What do you mean they can't attack them? Oh, I think I know who it is. It's Sanson, isn't it? Azui realized the child's identity, remembering them from the amusement park. Izuka nodded, confirming her suspicions. Achiko shuddered. Oh no. Oh no. Momo repeated in confusion. Is this child somehow more dangerous than the ones we've seen before? Sanson is considered the strongest of all the kids currently under my care, Izuku revealed, causing everyone to suddenly get nervous as they wondered what on earth could be that strong. Her quirk is called acid body. Her body is entirely made up out of extremely corrosive acid and she can manipulate it however she pleases. Basically, she's completely immune to most attacks. Your quirk has to have some sort of special effect on her in order to take her down. Achiko explained. Like my gravity manipulation. But I don't think anyone on Team E can do anything to her. Kaminari actually can do something. Electricity can cause Sanson to lose control over her body temporarily, turning her into a motionless pile of acid for about 20 seconds. Izuka remembered the day they found that out. Sanson got a bit too close to an electrical outlet and it did not end well. Wait, so she's just a sentient blob of acid? Momo knew she was just repeating what Izuka had said. But it sounded absurd. Like many other things she heard today. She would be able to beat most people in this class just because of her quirk alone. She's like Mina on Trigger. Mineta shouted. Or a better version of that sludge villain. Toru pointed out. Izuku flinched but didn't say anything. So what are they gonna do? Sato asked. Well, it appears their current plan is to just run around and look for the child. Niza pointed out. But it appears they won't have to look for much longer. Back with Team E. Team E was still running and both Siro and Kaminari were falling behind. Mina, you must slow down. It is imperative that you do not desert your allies. Ida shouted at her. Mina stopped for a minute and used this opportunity to catch her breath. Sorry, you guys. I guess I got too ahead of myself. Oh wow, no wonder you guys couldn't keep up. I've never run that hard before. If you don't pace yourself, you gonna tire us all out before we even find the kid. Siro panted. Sis. Everyone suddenly froze when they heard what sounded like acid burning through something. Mina, did you make any acid? Kaminari asked, looking around to see where that hissing was coming from. No. You guys would have seen me do it. Mina pointed out, wondering where the sound was coming from herself. Hisses. The four of them looked at a nearby manhole and found that smoke was coming off of it. And then Sanson slowly oozed out of the hole, completely swallowing and destroying the manhole as she made her way onto the street, which also started smoking as she touched it. Is that the kid? Kaminari asked, slightly confused by the sight of the moving pink puddle of acid. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised, Zero said, resignation dripping from his word. Waraha. Sanson let out some strange noises which only confused the students more. Was that a cry? Are they crying? Mina honestly wished she had more details. I've never heard a cry like that before, Zero muttered. Rare. Suddenly, in the distance, they saw two Grimm, this time looking like huge gorillas, charging right at them. We're gonna have to fight those things, aren't we? Kaminari asked nervously. It appears so. Ida got into a stance, ready to fight. However, Sanson suddenly moved towards them and went right at Ida. Ha! Ida quickly reacted, using his quirk to help him dodge Sanson's lunge. Scored. Hug. Sanson said, reading the lines she had been giving earlier. Oh. I get it. She wants a hug. Kaminari said, however, his eyes widened in fear when he saw Sanson coming to give him a hug. Hey, wait a minute. Kaminari had to keep backing up as Sanson came closer and closer to him until eventually he just started running from the acid girl. Eventually, Sanson stopped chasing him and started going after Mina. Mina didn't quite know what to say and just opened her arms up for a hug. Sanson didn't waste any time and jumped on Mina, wrapping herself around the older acid girl and restraining her whole body. Hey, I like tight hugs, but I can't move. Mina's whole body was being constricted by the goo girl. It was a good thing she was acid-proof. Unfortunately, it wouldn't hold out forever. Continuous exposure to acid would degrade her skin's resistance to it until she too would burn at Sanson's touch. The three guys couldn't do anything but watch as Mina tried to struggle out of Sanson's grip to no effect. It's not like they could pull her off, she was made of acid. But they had other problems to worry about anyway as the Gorilla Grimm were getting close. Mina, please try and calm them down. We will deal with these Grimm, Ida told her. Hopefully it will assist in calming them. Okay. Mina said she had stopped struggling at this point, seeing as it wasn't helping her in the slightest. With that decided, Ida, Zero, and Kaminari looked towards the oncoming threats. Kaminari, you said your quirk causes you to fry your brain, correct? Ida asked his classmate. Yeah. Kinda only a one-use thing for now. Kaminari admitted. Then let me and Zero incapacitate these monsters. Ida strategized. Hey, now wait a minute. Zero wasn't quite on board with fighting two giant hulking beasts with one less teammate after already being one teammate down. But he didn't have time to object as the gorillas were in range and Ida ran at them. Aim for their feet, Zero. Ida ran at them as fast as he could while in first gear and charged right at one of the gorillas. One of the gorillas tried to pick Ida up, but the armored student ducked under the swipe and went between its legs. The two gorillas had their attention on Ida, so they didn't notice Zero shoot out his tape at the left one's legs, tying them together and causing it to fall to the ground. The other one looked at Zero, giving it an enraged roar. However, before it could move to attack, Ida came back and kicked it in the back of the head, causing it to face plant onto the ground. Now, Kaminari, Ida ordered. Right? Zero, give me a boost. Kaminari told his ally. Zero nodded and wrapped Kaminari's midsection in tape before swinging him around and throwing him at the two Grimm. Indiscriminate shock. Say goodbye. Kaminari unleashed a massive electric attack at both of the apes, electrocuting them both. Raha! The two beasts screamed at the top of their lungs before they quickly died and their bodies turned into black smoke. Kaminari's face planted onto the ground and Ida came running up to check on him. Kaminari, are you okay? Ida picked up Kaminari and turned him around, only to be met with derp face. We, Kaminari responded. Meanwhile, Mina was still trying to talk Sanson into letting her go. Kid, look. The villains are gone. You can let go now. More Sanson said. It was at that moment that the ground started to rumble. Awulu. Coming just into view, running down the streets, was a horde of Beowulfs. About 70. All running at them. Oh. Shit. Zero looked at the oncoming horde with absolute fear shining in his eyes. Language. Ida shouted at his ally. Really? Now. Zero was honestly shocked that Ida would still be concerned about such things. A hero should never let loose such profanities. even in the face of danger. Ida rationalized before tucking Kaminari under his arm. Heroes should also know when they are outmatched. Like just now. Grab Mina and run. And with that, Ida took off in the opposite direction. Eh? How am I gonna do that? She's covered in acid. Shiro shouted at Ida, but he was already too far away. Ah! Damn it! Knowing he couldn't just leave Mina there, Shiro shot his tape out at her, covering her in tape before using his other arm to swing away through the air, beginning Mina with him. However, Sanson quickly dissolved the tape, causing Mina to go hurtling to the ground before Shiro's tape caught her again. Ah! Could you please? Stop! Dropping me! Mina felt like she was gonna vomit, not only from being swung around on tape but from constantly falling and being lifted up again every time Sanson ate through his tape and he had to catch her again. Sorry. If you can't tell, this is really hard and there's a horde of demons after us. Shiro turned back to see the Beowulfs were gaining on them. Mina looked at the oncoming horde of red-eyed death and knew she needed to get the kid off of her. Hey, kid, what's your name? Mina asked as calmly as she could. Sanson. The goo girl said. Oh, that sounds like a great name for a girl? Mina was unsure of the gender of this living blob of acid, but the voice she used sounded feminish. You are a girl, right? Sanson formed a head near Mina's face and nodded. Okay, Sanson, do you like heroes? Mina asked her. Sanson nodded. I want to be a hero. Well, then you need to let me go, Mina told her in a gentle tone before she looked at the horde. I know they're scary, but I can't just lie here and do nothing. A hero has to be brave. Can you do that for me, Sanson? Be a brave little hero. Hero. Sanson repeated. I don't want to hurt anyone. My queer court's everything. I know. Mina smiled at her kindly. Acid can really make a mess sometimes. My quirk makes acid too, but I use my acid to take down bad guys and save people. So acid can be used for good too. And I'll show you how if you let me go. There were a few moments of silence before Mina felt Sanson's acid started to move off of her and the goo girl came off her and fell to the ground below with the Beowulfs coming at her. Wait, I didn't mean like that. Mina shouted. The Beowulfs quickly descended upon Sanson with 3 of them lunging at her with their claws extended out, only for them to be grabbed out of the air by Sanson's newly formed tentacles and shoved into her acid body where they struggled a bit before dissolving away. Sanson expanded herself, getting bigger and bigger until she was the size of a bus and faced off against the army of Beowulfs. They never stood a chance. Shiro stopped swinging and brought the both of them to the ground where they just sat and watched in shock as Sanson tore through the demon-like wolves, swallowing them in her acid, slamming them around with dozens of her tentacles, forming weapons out of her body, and using them to crush and slice the Beowulfs by the dozens. Oh wow, she's really killing those things. Shiro could only watch in awe as the massacre unfolded in front of him. Ida ran up to them with Kaminari still in his arms. What is with the class president watched as Sanson beheaded 6 Beowulfs with an acid axe at the same time as she impaled 12 Beowulfs with her acid tentacles. At the same time she dragged some Beowulfs into her body, while also forming a massive acid mouth to swallow 5 more Beowulf. By now Sanson just looked like a massive acid monster that was brutally killing everything in her path. Should we stop her? This would be vigilantism, wouldn't it? Ida sounded more hesitant than he should have. Stop her? Dude, she's almost done. Shiro informed him. I think all we could do is just watch the slaughter. Back in the observation room. You were not wrong. She is quite terrifying. Momo admitted with wide, frightened eyes as she and the class witnessed Sanson's slimy slaughter. Did you really fight her, Uraraka? Azui couldn't imagine trying to fight Sanson. To think this is the same kid that was turned into soup at that teacup ride. Yeah, it wasn't fun. Uraraka gave a nervous laugh. Even with my new quirk upgrade, I couldn't beat her if she was in full acid mode. This is the reason we decided that fighting Sanson should not be part of the exercise. Nisa sipped his tea. Of course I did not intend for this to happen either. Sanson is going off script. I apologize, Sanson must have not liked the fact that she was the only one to not have any action. She's very fond of fighting, you see, and not very fond of staying still. Izuka sighed. Although I can't really blame her. Well, it looks like that was the last of the Grim, Nisa commented. The exercise is over, so let's call them back. A few minutes later, after everyone was called back, Nisa spoke up. That exercise did not go as intended, but I think you understood the point of it. Sometimes children will look to you for comfort, sometimes in a physical way, such as attempting to hug you. This, however, may impede your ability to perform your job as a hero, or it will just kill you. There are unfortunate cases of children attempting to hug people only for their quirks to end up killing the person they were attempting to hug. Izuku remembered Eri's story and felt a pang of sadness run through him. So while you may want to comfort a child in distress, it would be best to employ caution if you can, Nizu told them. Mina pouted but stayed silent out of fear of provoking Nizu. So using your words to calm a distressed child is a valuable skill, one that may end up saving your life, Nizu told them. Of course, afterward the correct response would not be to let them take down the villain themselves, but given the swiftness in which she dispatched her foes, I will look the other way on that this once. And with that, congratulations. You have all passed. Very well done. These exercises were hard, however, the real-life situations will be so much harder. So keep your wits about you. Now, time for lunch. The bell rang and the students were dismissed. Bakugo was seething. When he first woke up in the infirmary, he was confused. That kid, that 40-foot, three-headed kid, had called himself a Midoriya, and said that Deku was his father. There were so many reasons that didn't make sense, it boggled his mind. The chief among those reasons being who the actual hell would want to make kids with Deku. Of course, there was the possibility that Deku adopted a kid, but how and why would Deku do that? Why would Auntie Inko let him do that? In the end, he decided that just thinking about it wouldn't get him anywhere and that he needed to confront Izuku himself. But that ended up getting him nowhere too. Suddenly the terrified, shaking loser that he used to be able to make piss himself with a flare had the nerve to tell him to wait. Without even so much as a stutter. It only made his confusion about the situation even worse. It was like Deku had become a completely different person with a completely different life in the many months since he last saw him. And before he could get any answers, that rat principal sent him away. So all he could do while he was waiting in the infirmary was seethe in anger and wonder how the fuck this happened. Fortunately for him, he wouldn't have to wait much longer. The doors to the infirmary opened and in walked Aizawa, who immediately made his way over to the short-tempered blonde. Midori is ready to talk to you. He's in one of the teachers' lounges waiting for you. Aizawa informed him. I would have liked for him to stay here for a while longer, but I'll go get his crutches. Recovery Girl said. I don't need any fuwa. Bakugo was bonked on the head by Recovery Girl's cane. Quite. Recovery Girl said before going to get the crutches. A few minutes later, Bakugo, now using his crutches, was following behind Aizawa as he leads him to the teacher's lounge where Izuku was located. I hope you realize how fortunate you are that Midoriya is even entertaining you after all you did to him, Aizawa told him. He doesn't owe you anything. Why the hell do you care? Bakugo snapped. He had been on thin ice since he got to UA, and so he'd been trying not to shout at the teachers, but he honestly couldn't hold it in anymore. Since when did any of you assholes care about shitty Deku? All my fucking life you teachers told me that I was fucking unstoppable and kissed the ground I walked on and that Deku was lower than dirt. Then I come to UA, the place that's supposed to be for the best of the best. And now Deku's somehow calling the fucking shots and I'm being treated like shit. I guess this really must be that confusing for you. The world suddenly must seem like it flipped upside down. Tell me, Bakugo, did you bother finding out what happened to your old schools, teachers, classmates, and principals? Aizawa asked, the confusion on Bakugo's face telling him that he didn't. The schools were shut down and the staff were all given jail sentences ranging from 12 years on the lower end to 34 years on the higher end, and the classmates that were confirmed were giving varying punishments depending on the severity of their actions, with some things being put on their records that would make finding a good school a very difficult task. Out of everyone, though, you got off the luckiest by Midoriya's request. Bakugo's eyes widened slightly with a bit of shock. Do you know why we cracked down so hard on those schools and the people in them? Aizawa asked. Because quirk discrimination is a plague that we've been trying to kill for ages. It has no place in modern-day society or any society for that matter. Schools and teachers that display these values are to be treated with no sympathy because they do this. Aizawa gestured to Bakugo, showing that Bakugo was the this he was referring to. Bakugo, by all means, you are not at all the worst kind of person on the planet, not even close, Aizawa told him, once again shocking Bakugo. You don't sexually harass female students, you don't cheat on exams or tests, you assist your classmates during the exercises, and heck, even when you were assaulting Midoriya, as horrible as that was. You took care to never let the injuries you caused him to become debilitating or lethal, and with your quirk that would require so effort on your part. Of course I didn't want the fucking nude dead. Bakugo said as if he was insulted by Aizawa's statement. You could have been a much more heroic person than you are now. Maybe even the top student. The problem was that you were raised in a toxic environment. Aizawa told him. You lived in your own little world in which everyone told you were a king and where quirkless people like Izuku were nothing and deserved to be discriminated against. But now that that world is gone, you're left in the real world struggling to figure out which way's up and which way's down. Bakugo didn't know how to feel about that. He wanted to deny it. Say that Aizawa didn't know what he was talking about. He didn't want to admit that maybe he really was wrong. But he wasn't an idiot. He saw the way the people around him looked at him. Teachers, staff, and especially students. It was like there was something wrong with him, like he was a disease or something. And even some of the students at his previous schools and his own parents gave him those looks in the past. He'd never given it much thought other than just labeling them as losers and moving on. But he sure didn't feel like a winner now. People are telling you things that are contrary to what you've grown up believing, and as such you're resisting. Which is why we're being so harsh. Aizawa continued. It's not because we necessarily hate you, it's because we need to get through your extremely thick skull that it's not okay for heroes to think that they can hurt innocent people. Bakugo grits his teeth but doesn't respond. The rest of the short walk to the lounge was silent. After a few minutes, they reached a door with the Woods Teacher's Lounge written on it. Aizawa turned to Bakugo and gave the teen a stern look. Midoriya is inside. Before you go in, there are things you need to know. TCH. Just spit it out. Bakugo growled. He just wanted to talk to Izuku already. First I'll be waiting outside, meaning I'll hear you if you shout of any threats or use your quirk. Both of those things will be met with disciplinary actions. Aizawa explained. Bakugo gave a light growl. He knew he was going to have to try real hard to restrain himself. Second, it probably wouldn't take much on Midoriya's part to get you expelled. Aizawa continued. That made Bakugo freeze up for a moment as shock and a bit of fear coursed through him at the thought of Izuku being able to get him expelled from UA, his dream school. The only reason you were allowed into the school in the first place is because the Midoriyas didn't take legal action against you. And I have a feeling that there is more to what you did to him than what we know of. Depending on what it is, that by itself could get you expelled. And if Midoriya wanted to take legal action against you, then you'd definitely be expelled. Aizawa explained. So I'd suggest you watch yourself while you're speaking to him. Your future depends on it. And with that, Aizawa moved aside, making way for Bakugo to enter. Bakugo hesitated for a moment but quickly buried any fear that may have been lurking within him, and his face settled into his standard scowl. And so he entered. The teacher's lounge was nothing special. Just a few chairs, some stuff for making tea and coffee, and two couches that faced each other with a glass table in between. Izuku was there, sitting on one of the couches, doing paperwork seemingly with a cup of coffee beside him. When Bakugo entered, Izuku looked up and their eyes met. Deku, Bakugo growled. Izuku didn't respond at first, at least not verbally. Instead, he took a deep breath and then took a long sip of his coffee. Once he put the coffee down, he looked back up at Bakugo and said, My name is Midoriya. Again, Bakugo was taken aback. Izuku hadn't asked him to stop calling him Deku since before even middle school. And even then he'd always asked him to call him Izuku, not Midoriya. If Bakugo didn't feel like he was talking to a completely different person before, he definitely thought that now. This wasn't the Izuku Midoriya he'd known, and he might actually have to watch his step. The shock Bakugo was feeling must have shown on his face because Izuku picked up on it and decided to explain himself. It's really not good for either of us if I let you keep calling me useless, Izuku told him. And as much as I hate to say it, I can't really call us friends right now. So do you for now? It's Midoriya. Bakugo didn't respond. He didn't really know how to respond. His pride wouldn't let him capitulate and do what Izuku said, but he was too smart to just ignore him. So he just kept his mouth shut. After a bit of silence, Izuku spoke again. We're going to be here for a while, so you probably want to take a seat. TCH. Bakugo did just that, sitting down on the couch opposite to Izuku and continued to silently glare at him. He looked down for a moment at the papers Izuku was fiddling with before. It was definitely paperwork and there were some pictures of people on them. All right, now? I did promise you an explanation, Izuku said, regaining Bakugo's attention. But we have to establish something first. I am not the same person I was when you last saw me. No shit. Bakugo spat. I have kids now, so I've had to look at things differently. Bakugo had just taken notice of something. Izuku's tone, the way he spoke, was all very tired, as if he hadn't slept for days. And his face reflected that tiredness. That includes you. You see, I can't just let you walk over me like I used to or keep praising you when you really don't deserve it. And I can't let you continue to stay how you are. Bakugo felt his anger spike and he let out a growl. What the fuck do you dash? They don't know about the suicide baiting. Izuku interrupted him. Bakugo felt like he got hit with a bucket of cold water as he realized what Izuku just said and what that implied. If I told them this, your future would be over, Izuku said. His tone was dead serious. I have no intention of ever letting that out. But I need to know you're improving. That you won't stay the same, violent, angry, seemingly psychopathic person you've shown me you can be. I've always wanted you to be a hero, but I can't afford to just roll over and let you do as you please and just hope you'll get better. Bakugo, if you do anything out of line, there will be consequences. And if you lose it and attack me, then I'm telling them about what you said and I'll be done with you, for good. Bakugo was shell-shocked. The situation he was in was now clear to him. Izuku had all the power and he couldn't do anything about it. It was so bizarre that he honestly couldn't feel anything but shock for a bit. Eventually, though, his anger rose, spiking harder than he had felt it go in a long time. Anger at Deku thinking he was above him. Anger at Deku actually having power over him. Anger at the nonsensical world that gave Deku that power. And anger at himself for not being able to do anything about it. His hands started heating up, smoking as his quirk started reacting to his emotions. He wanted so badly to use his quirk, to shout and scream and put Deku back in his place. But if he did that, then everything he worked for would be for naught. And his dream would be dead. After a few minutes, Bakugo managed to rein in his anger a bit and his hands stopped smoking. Once Izuku was sure Bakugo had fully gotten himself under control, he gave his former friend a small smile. Good. I needed to see that your dream was still more important to you than your pride. Just tell me what the hell happened to you. Bakugo at this point honestly wanted to leave more than he wanted to hear about what the hell caused this change in Izuku, but he knew he would regret that once he got his emotions more under control later. And he also didn't want to risk just storming out on Izuku. Alright, we don't have all the time in the world and it is a long story, so I should really start now, I guess. Izuku took another sip of his coffee and prepared himself. Alright, so do you remember how I was when you last saw me at school? Yeah, you look dash. Bakugo wanted to say fucking pathetic, but he decided against it. Miserable. More than usual. Well, there's a reason for that. You see, funny story, you weren't the first one to get attacked by the sludge villain. Izuku revealed, now looking a bit more sheepish. I was. What? Bakugo didn't know where this was going, but he had a feeling it was gonna piss him off. I was attacked by the sludge villain before you while I was walking home from school, Izuku repeated. And I was saved by All Might. Wait. If All Might already took down the fucking villain before he even got to me, then how the hell did he get away? Bakugo knew that escaping All Might was practically impossible, so he really didn't see how that same villain could have also attacked him. Well, All Might captured the villain by putting him in bottles and then putting them in his pockets, and I wanted to ask All Might a question, but he was kinda already about to jump away, and so I held onto his legs, which caused the bottles to slip out mid-jump, and so the villain got out. Izuku looked away from Bakugo as he explained this, too embarrassed and ashamed to look him in the eye while he said this. You what? Bakugo shouted at him. His palms were smoking again, and he very nearly let off an explosion. You mean I almost died because your stupid ass wanted to ask All Might a question? Izuku gave Bakugo a stern look, reminding him of where he stood. Be careful, Bakugo. Honestly, Izuku would have been more than fine about Bakugo shouting at him for that. He was sure he deserved it. But he couldn't allow Bakugo to get too out of line. Grrrr. Bakugo took another few moments to calm himself down before he leaned back in his chair. After a bit more time passed, Izuku continued. The question I wanted to ask All Might, I asked him if I could be a hero. And he said no. Bakugo knew the world was upside down, but he was pretty sure one thing was the same, Deku couldn't be a hero. He said no, Izuku confirmed with a saddened sigh. It still hurt to talk about even after all this time. So that's why you looked like someone got killed in front of you every time I saw you, Bakugo said. There was so much more that he wanted to say, but he bit his tongue and held it all in. For the sake of his own dream. Yeah. I fell into depression, things just went gray. Izuka had a tough time describing his depressed period. It was all just a blur of sadness and despair that he didn't often want to think about. I just couldn't deal with anything anymore, so I eventually just stopped bothering to go to school. I just stayed home and wallowed in my own despair until Eri knocked on my door. Izuka picked up his phone and showed the screen to Bakugo where he saw a picture of Eri around a few weeks after he'd taken her in. That's the brat you saved from the Yakuza, right? Bakugo still couldn't believe what he just said. I heard about that. What did you fucking adopt her to? Yes, Izuka said, putting the phone away. She was being chased by the head of the Yakuza, Kai Chisaki aka Overhaul, for reasons that I can't really tell you, but let's just say that if he caught her she would have been basically tortured in the worst way possible and imprisoned. So he was a piece of shit. Bakugo summarized. Basically, yeah, the worst kind of scum that you can imagine. Izuka gladly confirmed. But he was powerful both with his quirk and his influence. His quirk allowed him to take apart and put back together anything he wanted in any way he wanted on a molecular level. Meaning that he's capable of cleaning up crime scenes so thoroughly that law enforcement can't even find a trace of him. So the heroes and the police had a hard time finding evidence against him. I hid Eri and set my phone to record and hid that too, then I pretended to be asleep. So when he eventually left, I had evidence of him breaking in, which the heroes used as a reason to search his base, which broke out into a full-out raid when they fought back. All Might was there during the raid, so they didn't really stand a chance. TCH, looks like you actually can think once in a while. Bakugo would never have admitted this, not even to himself, but he probably would have handled that situation a lot worse. Of course, the only time you can save someone is by running away and hiding. Yeah, but I did end up saving her. Which brings me to the next part of the story, DC, or as they were called at the time, OPCCC. Izuka hadn't said that name in a while. That's a stupid fucking name, Bakugo said immediately. That's why they changed it. Anyway, they were responsible for dealing with children who had dangerous quirks. Eri was one such child, so they gave me the option to adopt her. Izuku explained. You're fucking 15, that's a terrible idea. Bakugo pointed out. Well, they didn't have many other options. Not many people want to adopt kids that might kill them. Izuku coughed and quickly took another sip of his coffee. I said yes, and so I took Eri under my care. Where was Auntie Inko? Why the hell did she let you do something that stupid? Bakugo asked if there was one person he knew should care about Izuku. It was Inko, so how could she allow this to happen? Mom was really worried about me. She wasn't going to be around for a while, and I was so depressed before she left. I think she knew that if I had Eri around, I would be more active and less sad. Izuka answered. Although I don't think she could have imagined what would happen next. What did you run into another kid being used by a villain? Bakugo asked sarcastically. Yeah, actually. Izuka smirked at Bakugo's shocked expression. The "are you shitting me" look was so evident on his face that it almost made him laugh. Not too long after I got Eri, I went to a supermarket with her to buy some things, and a villain attacked using another child's quirk to turn everyone to stone. Her name is Kay. Izuka showed him a picture of her while they were selling food at the food stand. After shooting the villain with a tranquilizer dart dash. Wait, why the hell did you have a tranq gun? Bakugo asked him. Eri's quirk is, well, I said before, it's dangerous, and she basically had no control over it. If her quirk went off by accident or she couldn't turn it off during her training, then she could very easily kill someone by accident. So the only way to turn it off at that point is with, well, the tranq gun. Izuka hated talking about the tranq gun. He felt a lot better about it now than he did before. Since Eri had better control over her quirk, Izuku felt like he was less likely to use it, which put him at ease a bit. Bakugo also seemed to understand the necessity of it and stayed silent. So after I rescued her, I adopted her because she also fell under DOC's jurisdiction, and I really just didn't know how to say no to her and Eri. Izuka sighed. It was also at that point that DC started to realize I had a weakness when it came to the kids and started being more pushy. They only got more and more forceful with each kid I happened to find dash. Wait, you telling me this shit happened again? Bakugo asked in disbelief. How many fucking parents just dump their kids onto the streets? Way too many, Izuku answered, although in his eyes any amount of kids being abandoned on the street was way too many. Anyway, after bumping into a few more kids, DOC fully realized that they could give all of the kids under their custody to me. And so I signed a contract that would put me in charge of a new organization in charge of taking care of any OPCs whose parents either couldn't keep them or no longer wanted to keep them. I would get a very generous amount of government funding, a large house capable of fitting that many children, and a lot of other benefits. But in return, I would have to do this for the rest of my life and take in every single child taken by DOC without the ability to refuse. I decided the course of my life when I signed that. So let me get this straight. You through some free coincidence kept finding abandoned kids with overpowered quirks, and the government saw an opportunity to dump all their unwanted brats on you because they knew you wouldn't fucking say now. And so you signed your life away so you're stuck babysitting until you fucking die. Bakugo summarized. Izuka sighed, massaging the bridge of his nose to try and fight off a headache that was developing. Not how I would put it. And don't call them unwanted brats. Ever. There was a moment of silence between them as Bakugo took a minute to fully take that in. You really did give up, huh? Bakugo had tried for years to get Izuku to give up on his dream, and he honestly thought that at this point only death would get Izuku to stop. It turns out all it would take was All Might himself. That guy really could do anything. But it just seemed that something was wrong about it. Maybe in a vacuum he would consider that to be a good thing, but now it was just another thing that changed, adding to the feeling that his life before UA might have well been, like Aizawa said, another world entirely. What else could I do? Trying to be a hero while quirkless would have been hard enough, but trying to be a quirkless hero while also raising 5 kids and giving them all the attention they needed? That would have been impossible. And unfair to them, Bakugo had never heard Izuka sound so defeated. And that said a lot. It was like he really was watching a dream die in front of him. And that caused a bolt of fear to course through him as a pesky stray thought asked the question. Could that be me? Bakugo shook his head to try and rid himself of the thought. No. I could never be as pathetic as Deku. However, once again, another stray thought made him pause. But what would you do if he expelled you right now? Bakugo refused to give that any thought. At least if I took this offer, I could still be useful. I could help these kids. Izuku continued. So after reading the contract through and through, I signed. And so now I'm the official caretaker for all OPC children given up by their parents. Which is why I moved, by the way. Every now and then, DC will hand me new children to take care of from their facilities, like Kai. Bakugo growled at the mention of the kaiju boy as he still was feeling the pain done to both his body and pride. So, when's the part where you became buddy-buddy with fucking All Might, ratted out the school, and became the head of some other fucking government branch or some shit? And where the hell is Auntie Inko? Well, to start with All Might, when I gave the evidence to the police they put me under witness protection. All Might was the first hero who volunteered to guard us, and after that, I kept running into him. I think he feels bad about telling me I can't be a hero. Although I don't really think he should. Izuku explained. And as for Mom, well, she used a lot of the money we acquired to start her own company. It's doing pretty well. Right now she's overseas working to try and raise it up even more. So far that was the only thing Izuku had said that made Bakugo even the slightest bit happy. Well, at least she's doing fine. She deserves it for having to put up with Deku's worthless ass. Also, I never really ratted out the school. Izuka corrected. After the heroes figured out I was quirkless and that I hadn't gone to school in a while, they got suspicious and started investigating. It didn't take them too long to figure out about the quirk discrimination. Bakugo paused. That makes sense. I still don't see why they should fucking care, but since they do for some goddamn reason, it makes sense they'd take one look at Deku's ass while he's out of school and see that something was up. Also, I want to say, I am not the head of a government branch, Izuka said sternly. You could say that I am unofficially in charge of the quirk removal branch, and I do decide who gets their quirks erased, but on paper, I'm not at all in charge of it. Wait, the what branch? Bakugo wasn't sure he heard that correctly. He had to have misheard it because there was no way what he heard was true. The quirk removal branch. We wanted to keep it a secret for a while, but that was pretty pointless. Eventually, people were going to find out about others suddenly losing their quirks. The government hasn't announced the branch to the public yet, but Izuku didn't get a chance to finish as Bakugo uninterrupted him. What the fuck do you mean, quirk removal? Don't just brush past that. How the fuck are removing quirks? And why the fuck are you in charge of it? Bakugo was feeling a mix of confusion, anger, and fear. Because now he knew Izuku could do so much worse than just expel him. Well, unfortunately, both the way in which quirks are removed and the reason I have so much influence are on a strictly need-to-know basis. Izuku made sure his tone conveyed that there was no room for argument. If the knowledge that Aries' blood was the key ingredient to making the quirk-erasing formula, then countless people would come after her and do the same thing Overhaul did. The poor girl would probably never be able to step outside again. But you don't need to worry about your quirk being erased. Quirk erasure isn't a punishment, although the government is trying to convince me to say otherwise, but for now, the only people whose quirks we're interested in getting rid of are people whose quirks simply cannot allow them to live normally around other people, without a significant chance of them accidentally killing them. Basically, quirks belonging to level 20.c.ps. People with quirks more dangerous than the level 1 OCPs you've seen like Kai. That didn't make Bakugo much calmer. To him, he still saw it as his fate being at Izuku's mercy, which was an uncomfortable thought to say the least. I think that covers everything. Izuku gave a relieved sigh. A lot has changed, it's almost unbelievable even for me. It's very different from how I thought my life would be, Kaken. I want to see you become a great hero. Not once during this talk did you lash out at me or attack me. You can improve. I know that. But until then, I would like to stay away from each other. Right now you're not really a good influence for my kids, also they hate you. So for now it's best to go our separate ways. TCH? Fine. The less I have to see you the better. Bakugo grumbled. Can I get out of here now? I'm fucking starving. Izuku nodded and Bakugo picked up his crutches and walked over to the door and left without looking back. The green-haired father immediately sunk into his seat as all the tension he'd been feeling melted away. In truth, he had been more than a bit nervous about meeting with Bakugo. He didn't think that Bakugo would attack him. He was somewhat confident that his old friend was smart enough not to ruin his own future. But he also wouldn't have thought his old friend would have turned into such a bully. So there was a bit of doubt. Still, he knew Bakugo would need to be dealt with. He knew that the explosive blonde was quite stubborn, and if he wanted to find him then he very well might. And the last thing Izuku wanted was Bakugo getting near his house, only to be met with his children and likely an army of Grimm. That would not end well for anyone. However, his relief was short-lived as suddenly he felt a strong pain in his chest. Gah! Izuku clutched his chest in pain, but it didn't last long, as soon the pain vanished just as quickly as it came. Izuku struggled for breath for a bit, sweat dripping down his face as he suddenly felt very hot. After another few minutes, everything went back to normal and fell to the side, now completely laying down on the couch. I should see a doctor, Izuku concluded. He felt so tired and he could feel his eyes closing and he knew he couldn't stop them. I'll make an appointment, eventually. And so everything went black. Class 1A was kinda confused. Everyone, sans Bakugo, was taken over to the cafeteria and they got their lunches, but instead of going to the lunch tables and going about their usual business, Niza gathered them all back and they were being led through the hallways. Principal Nizu? What is happening? Ida asked, not able to do his arm-chopping motions because he was holding his lunch. You'll see, Niza told them. That made everyone a bit nervous. If Niza had something planned, it probably wasn't very good. For them, that is. Eventually, they arrived at a pair of doors that lead outside the building. Today you all will be eating outside, Niza told them, putting his hands on the doors. As for why, Niza opened the door and for once the students were pleasantly surprised. Outside in one of Yue's yards was the kids eating on a few wooden picnic tables that the staff set up. They were all currently at one table, all talking to each other, except Kai, who was off to the side eating a pile of meat, and Yami, who was just sitting there listening. Hey, they're here. Netsu, now fully donning his fireproof clothes, pointed at the students, swiftly causing them to swarm the poor teens. Kiba, thanks to her super speed, immediately sped over to Tokoyami. You. Bring out your shadow servant. Oh, she's like this all the time. Tokoyami realized, much to his horror. Fu sent out a black tentacle and smacked her in the back of the head. Manners. Ow. Kiba pouted at her brother as she rubbed the place where he hit her. Fu gave Tokoyami an apologetic look as best he could. Yeah, she's always like this, sorry. Don't apologize? I think it's funny. Dark shadow came out of Tokoyami and hovered over Kiba. Humph. You won't find me so amusing when I surpass you. Kiba swore. Mark my words, Shadow. You will kneel before me. Ahaha. I look forward to seeing you try. Dark Shadow challenged. Meanwhile, Netsu ran up to Todoroki and the older boy gave the flaming child a conflicted look. You that ice guy, right? Your quirk is so cool. We should fight sometime. Can you turn your quirk off? Todoroki asked him. Nope. The flame's always on. Netsu shrugged. Don't worry. My clothes are fireproof. Just don't touch my head. Todoroki knew it wasn't fair to dislike this child he just met because his quirk reminded him of someone he'd rather not be thinking about. But at the same time, he couldn't help but be reminded of his father's flaming facial hair while looking at the blazing face of Netsu. Meanwhile, Sansan, now in her non-acidic form, made her way over to Mina and wrapped herself around her. Minna. Yes. Please. Call me that forever. Mina said with a deadly serious voice before squealing. Ah, you're so cute like this. And you're blue now. Sansan nodded. What burning? Oh yeah. Your acid isn't burning anything. Toru pointed out. This is Sansan's neutral form. By injecting some chemicals into her body, we can force her body into breeding mode, which makes her body non-corrosive. Nizu explained. Of course it does wear off, so we will have to inject her regularly. Cool. Wait, did you say breeding mode? Mina asked in a disbelieving tone. Yes, I don't think you needed any more encouragement not to allow her into your private parts, but if you did, there it is, Nizu said. Wait, does that mean that she's made of Sua? Kaminari didn't get to finish as Jiro stabbed him with one of her earlobes. Kai walked over, each footsteps causing a gentle shaking in the ground before leaning one of his heads down towards the group. EAP was the only noise that came out of Mineta's mouth as he trembled in fear. Mr. Nizu, is Mr. Bakugo okay? Kai asked the principal with a concerned expression, well, at least what they thought was concerned. It was hard to read the expressions of giant serpentine hydra heads. Pa, I don't see why you should be concerned for such a horrid creature. Kiba growled as she crossed her arms. He is more soulless than the Grimm, and they don't have any souls. Mr. Bakugo will be just fine, and your concern for him despite knowing what he's done to your father is appreciated, Nizu told him. Kai, you're too nice for your own good. Achiko walked over and patted the side of Kai's head, causing the young boy to purr like a cat. Oh, didn't expect him to make that noise. Toru honestly didn't know what noises to expect from someone like Kai, but it certainly wasn't purring. It's kinda cute. With a few more people joining in on the petting, Kaminari looked past the other kids and saw Yami still seated and eating. Hey, I don't remember seeing that kid before. Ah, Yami. Has been so long since we have last met. Ida ran up to the boy who still had a mouthful of food. Yami responded. Wait. Mina paused her petting and squinted at Yami, finding something unnerving about his appearance. Is he the kid who made all those Grimm? Yup, Ajui confirmed. I didn't know he could do that when I met him. So much power in such a little body, Karo. I feel like that's an accurate description of all of these kids, Shoto said, looking at Netsu and remembering that absolutely insane fire blast he let off. Yeah, that's why our parents didn't want us, Fu said. It was so sudden and so matter-of-fact that it took everyone but Nizu off guard. Hey, that's not true. Kiba protested. Yami's parents were eaten by wolves. Yami grunted in affirmation. Oh right, then all of our parents but Yami's didn't want us. Fu corrected. With the entire class now sad and slightly uneasy, Nizu decided now it was time to leave. Well, I will be leaving now. Enjoy your lunches. Nizu said as he turned to leave. Wait. Kirishima called out to the tiny principal, causing him to stop and turn towards his student. Oh, is there something wrong, Mr. Kirishima? Nizu asked. Yeah, I was wondering if I could talk to Midoriya? Kirishima asked. Actually, where is Izuku? Achiko asked, suddenly realizing that the greenette was nowhere to be found. Izuku Midoriya is currently doing some work in one of the teachers' lounges, Nizu revealed. If you'd like to speak to him, I would be more than happy to allow that. Achiko was about to ask if she could go too, eager to catch up with her friend. However, suddenly she felt someone tugging her hand and looked down to see Fu holding onto one of her fingers. We need to talk about Dad, Fu said in a hushed voice. Now while Fu said it in his normal deadpan voice, there was an underlying pleading and seriousness that Achiko only picked up because she'd been around Fu. Achiko nodded and the two went off the side. Alrighty then. Mr. Kirishima, please come with me. Nizu turned around and walked back inside, with Kirishima following suit. Alright everyone, let us sit down and engage in conversation. Please remember not to talk while your mouth is full. Ida ordered. Meanwhile, on the side with Achiko and Fu. So what happened? Is Izuku okay? Is he overworking himself? Achiko asked with a worried expression. It had been, in her opinion, too long since she'd last visited Izuku. But with all the work she'd been given and with Izuku's house being so out of the way, it was hard for her to make time to see her best friend. He's definitely working too much. Fu didn't know much about what his father did exactly, but he could tell just using logic that it was too much. From what he heard, taking care of one kid was hard work, let alone over 10. Yami can see that he's stressed. Literally. And it's getting worse every day. Yami tried talking to him about it, but he snapped at him. Dad never snaps at anyone. Achiko cringed. Izuku was the nicest person she knew. And the only time she'd ever really seen him get angry is when talking about neglectful or abusive parents or overhaul. And even then it was brief. So for him to actually snap at someone, let alone one of his kids, the stress must really be getting to him. Of course, knowing Izuku, that still didn't mean he would ask for any help. I'll try to talk to him later. He needs to hire help. Achiko sighed before pulling herself together and forcing a smile at Fu. Thank you for telling me this. Fu shook his head. No. Thanks for being there for Dad. It means a lot to all of us. Achiko's false smile turned into a real one, and she kneeled down and hugged the zombie boy. You're welcome. Meanwhile, with Kirishima. All right, he should be right in here. After a bit of walking, Niza had led Kirishima to the teacher's lounge Izuku was sitting in. Please do remember that he is a guest, and you must be on your absolute best behavior. Of course. Anything else would be unmanly. Kirishima smiled and gave the principal a thumbs up. Niza nodded and turned the doorknob, and saw Izuku sleeping soundly on the couch. It seems as if his lack of sleep has finally caught up to him. Niza turned to Kirishima, ushering him out. Well, we should let him get his sleep. As if sensing that his desperate need for sleep might minorly inconvenience someone else, Izuku suddenly jerked upright and forced his eyes open. Wah! Ha! Niza sighed, the first time Charisma had ever seen him do something like that. Never mind then. Midoriya, someone wanted to see you. Oh. Izuku stretched a bit, taking some time to fully wake up and take in his surroundings. Why, you're Kirishima. Right? Are you okay, man? Kirishima could see that the guy in front of him was obviously sleep-deprived. Why, yeah, I'll be fine. Izuku lied. Well, I'll be on my way, Niza told them before turning to Kirishima. Mr. Kirishima, do remember to head back to class when this is all done. You got it, sir? Kirishima told him. Niza nodded and promptly left the room, closing the door behind him. Kirishima looked at Izuku, and Izuku stared right back at him. There was a minute of awkward silence between the boys. Izuku just wasn't used to being social, and Kirishima wasn't sure how to approach the topic he wanted to talk about. So do you wanna sit down? Izuku eventually asked him. Oh yeah. Kirishima sat on the couch opposite to Izuku, and the awkward silence continued for half a minute until the hardening hero worked up the nerve to speak. So, I wanted to ask you something about Bakugo. Almost any semblance of forced happiness drained from Izuku's face, and Kirishima started to regret coming here. If you don't want it, that's fine. Kirishima added as quickly as he could. No, it's okay. Just, what do you want to ask? Izuku put his fake smile back on in an attempt to ease him. Well, I know he bullied you and everything, and I'm sorry if this seems like a stupid question, but is Bakugo? Kirishima found it was a lot harder to ask this question than he thought. A bad person? Izuku's expression shifted from tired to shocked. And once again Kirishima was left wondering if coming here was a mistake. Before he could try to amend his words though, Izuku spoke up. I honestly don't really know. Izuku sighed, his tired expression returning now, somehow making him seem even more tired than before. I've been wondering about that myself. I want to say no. I really do. But I know that I have some sort of bias that makes me want to believe him more. But every time I look at what he's done and said for the last 10 years, and I look at it logically, and I can't really dismiss the notion that he is. That was very shocking for Kirishima. Wait, you said you had a bias that made you want to believe in him? Didn't he bully you for most of your life? Yeah, I guess I should explain that. Izuku said. You see, a long time ago, Bakugo was my first friend. Wait, really? Kirishima was once again taken aback by this revelation. Izuku nodded solemnly. We were friends almost since birth. Our moms were close and we lived nearby each other, so we'd meet and play together often. We were close. The best of friends. What happened? Kirishima truly didn't know what could cause a friendship to fail so badly that it would end in one of the two former friends bullying the other one for years. He got his quirk. And I didn't. Izuku answered simply. That's it? He just stopped being your friend the moment you didn't get your quirk. Kirishima knew that quirk discrimination was bad, but would it really cause a friend to turn on their other friend that quickly? It wasn't. It's more complicated than that. Izuku took a moment to figure out how to explain this properly. It wasn't instant. It happened quickly, but it still took time. And honestly, I don't think it was fully Kaken's fault. When he got his quirk, he was praised constantly by the other people. Teachers, principals, students, even random people on the street sometimes. Whereas I was on the opposite end of the social ladder. Pretty much everyone hated me when they found out I was quirkless. It was like night and day between the two of us. Or rather, it was like rich and poor. So when everyone was telling him that he was absolutely amazing and that I was lower than the dirt, you can start to see how he became the way he is today. I mean, yeah, but that's still wrong. Kirishima would like to think that even in that situation, he would never turn on a friend. So while it did explain some of Bakugo's behavior, it didn't really make him think much better of the explosive blonde. Yeah, but honestly, I think most of the reason Kaken is the way he is because people fed him this toxic mindset his entire life, Izuku explained. And looking back, All Might was kind of a part of that. Wait, All Might? Kirishima was confused. Why would All Might be part of why Bakugo is such a jerk? All Might's a real man. Kirishima, when you think of All Might, what are things you think of first? Izuku asked him. His manly smile. His manly speeches. The manly way he saves people. And that wicked awesome power he has? Kirishima answered honestly. Izuku nodded. Bakugo probably only saw that last part though. When you're taught that might makes right and one of the most respected and worshipped people in the world is someone who's praised for their strength and literally called All Might, for him it kind of confirmed that mentality. Kirishima pondered that for a moment. At first, it seemed almost impossible that looking up to All Might could lead to anything bad, but Izuku's explanation made sense. I also probably didn't help this, Izuku admitted sheepishly. I was one of the people who kept praising him. If the victim of your bad acts tells you everything is okay, then it makes you think your bad act wasn't all that bad. I still don't really understand you, man. It feels like you should really hate Bakugo, but it sounds like you're defending him. Kirishima honestly didn't expect the conversation to go like this. Izuku grimaced. Well, it seems like family has a bad trait of defending people who hurt us. If you ask my mom, my dad is working overseas. What actually happened is that my dad abandoned us the moment he found out we were quirkless. Kirishima flinched after hearing that. He knew that quirk discrimination caused a lot of people to turn their backs on Izuku, but for even his own father to turn his back on him? It made Kirishima debate how much he really knew about quirk discrimination. I've looked through a lot of psychology books, mostly child psychology, and thought a lot about this topic, but I can't really come to a final conclusion, Izuku admitted. Izuku gave Kirishima a very serious look. Why did you want to ask me this? Kirishima thought about how to respond. He seemed so upset all the time. And everyone just seems to avoid him. He's all by himself, with no friends, and the teachers don't seem to like him either. And it just seems wrong to just leave him by himself. I want to help him, but I don't know if I should. It's exactly what Izuku thought. I think maybe at some point Kaken may have become a bad person, but I don't think he has to stay that way. Izuku got up and gave Kirishima a serious expression. If you're asking me, I think you should help him. Be friends with him. Help change him, but doing that won't be easy. Kaken is stubborn and abrasive. He won't just let you help him. You have to be determined to help him and never give up. And you have to be able to take a few explosions too. Are you that determined to help someone that a lot of people would say doesn't deserve it? Kirishima thought about it for a moment before giving Izuku a look that answered all of Izuku's questions. Hell yeah. If meeting you has taught me anything, just doing something or thinking some way about a person because of what everyone else says is bullshit. And I'm gonna help make Bakugo a better person, whether he wants to be or not. Izuku's expression softened into a true, genuine smile. Thank you. There's a part of me that still remembers back when we were friends. So it makes me very happy to know he won't be alone. I'm really glad we have people like you in the hero course. Thanks, man. Kirishima took Izuku's hand and shook it. And I'm glad we have someone like you taking care of these kids. You're a real man, you know that. Izuka wasn't 100% sure what that meant, but given Kirishima's tone, he took it as a compliment. Rinning. The bell rang, signifying the end of the lunch period. Ah crap, I gotta go. Kirishima ran towards the door, opening it, but right before he left, he stopped and turned to Izuku. You know man, if you ever need a break, I'd be happy to help you out. Taking care of all those kids by yourself has to be hard. Izuka did what he normally did. He smiled and lied through his teeth. I'm fine. Hello? Is this on? Kiba asked the camera. It is. Fantastic. Hello, my loyal subjects. Today we're going to try something different. Something different. What could that mean? Please tell us, oh great and mighty Kiba. Today we will be doing a tier list of sorts. Of the Marvel movies Phase 1, 2, and 3. Kiba revealed, showing the audience the list. I wanted to do all the movies, but that would take too much of my time. On Kiba's monitor was a tier list. At the top was the tier Royal. Below that was Outstanding. Below that was Entertaining. Below that was Merely Fine. Below that was Not Worth My Time. And below that was Should Be Cast into the Abyss. And below that was all the Marvel movies from Hulk to Spider-Man Far From Home. Now just seeing my opinion on such films would be more than enough. I've heard that having two people discuss such things is more enlightening and entertaining, Kiba explained. And as such, Fu will also be joining us. Fu appeared on the other screen, with a tier list identical to Kiba's. Hi. Yay, more Fu. And he's not gonna get dismembered this time. Queen Crimson, aw. You don't know that. Imagine Kiba disagrees with him so much she goes over there and rips his head off. I mean that has happened, Fu commented. But she's become less bratty since then, so we don't have to worry about that. Wait, what do you mean less bratty? Kiba shouted in outrage. Anyway, let's start with Hulk, Fu said as he moved on. It's okay. Fu put it in Merely Fine. It's only interesting when Hulk is on the screen. Which is way too little. Fu critiqued. I agree. Kiba said, putting the movie in the same place. Can we talk about the Hulk for a second? He is horribly wasted as a side character in these movies. You have this huge, amazing rage monster that they rarely use through phases 1 to 3. And it took them far too long to make a sequel. Why? Rights issues. Rights issues. Rights issues. Issues rights. Apparently it's because of rights issues. Fu pointed out. I guess this is back when Disney didn't own basically everything. Ugh. Stupid stuffy people in suits making things complicated. Kiba huffed. So moving on before Kiba goes on to another rant. Iron Man. Fu continued. Fu proceeded to move Iron Man to entertaining. Iron Man is a great movie. I probably would have put it higher if the villain wasn't dumb. What exactly was Ironmonger's plan? He was gonna take over the company by murdering someone in public in a giant robot suit. Fu summarized. And this is after he's already attacked a bunch of government agents? His plan should just be to go the run at that point. I think you're overrating it, brother. Kiba put Iron Man into the Merely Fine tier. Its fight scenes are all so one-sided except for the last one, which is okay. Stark is fun to watch, I guess. But that's the film that started it all. Kids these days. Are you questioning the great Kiba? You dare. Moving on, Fu said. Iron Man 2. Fu moved Iron Man 2 into Merely Fine. Meh. Little worse than the first one. This time it has two villains. Hammer is the only one that's any real fun to watch outside of the fight scenes. Fu summarized. Once again I disagree. Kiba put Iron Man 2 into Merely Fine. You put it in the same tier. Fu pointed out. Yes. But I think it's a bit better. Kiba said. The fight scenes in this one were less boring. And I like War Machine's armor better than Iron Man's. And Whiplash had really cool whips. Is Kiba only gonna look at the fight scenes and cool stuff? What did you expect her to look at? I'm glad Fu is here. Oh, we're gonna get some hot takes today. Thanks. Anyway, moving on. We have Captain America: The First Avenger. Fu said. Fu then proceeded to put that movie in entertaining. This film is really good and I really like the World War II thing. We didn't get to see him fight in the war as much, but we saw a lot of things around it. Fu explained. And the captain himself, while he is pretty simple, is fun to root for because he's such a nice guy. It's a simple movie, but a good movie. Kiba meanwhile slid the movie into Merely Fine. As Fu said, it's simple. And so are the fight scenes. The shield throwing is cool. And I really like that montage of him fighting in the war. But too much talking, too much romance. And the villain's final fight was kind of dull. Cap is great. The only American we can rely on. Back when America was reliable. Going on to Thor, Fu said. Fu slid Thor right into not worth my time. It has some interesting parts. Some funny parts. But it's pretty boring. It just doesn't feel like much is happening at all. Fu explained. Kiba on the other hand slid that movie into should be cast into the abyss. This movie makes me angry. Kiba shouted. You have a god. An actual god of lightning. And what do you do with him? You take away his powers and have him be lame almost the entire movie. It's so boring I fell asleep. It has one good fight scene. And one okay fight scene. This is a terrible movie. And a terrible disappointment. Damn, she roasted that movie. Stop, it's already dead. Yeah, they really could have done something more fun with Thor. At least they got their act together with Ragnarok. Next is the Avengers. Fu continued. Fu put the first Avengers movie into the entertaining tier. It's like Captain America. Good and simple. Fu summarized. It's really fun to watch all the heroes come together and fight aliens and sometimes each other. I think it's better than Captain America because Loki is a better villain. I disagree, I think it's much better Captain America. Kiba placed the Avengers into the outstanding tier. It's way funnier and has more fights. And better fights too. Watching the Avengers come together to fight an entire army is amazing. The only reason it's not higher is because there are more amazing movies later. It's iconic alright, even after all these years. The thing that showed the MCU really worked. I think it's underrated. Next up is the first movie of Phase 2, Iron Man 3, Fu announced. Fu put it in merely fine. It's an okay movie. Pretty fun, I liked the parts where he had to fight people without his suit. The villain was meh. At least they had some okay fights. The fights were fine. I liked those armorless fights as well. And the big fight at the end was the best part. Kiba said, sliding the movie into the same tier. Remember back when people were mad about the Mandarin thing? Dude, that was literally hundreds of years ago. I wish the Iron Man trilogy was better. The next one is Thor, The Dark World. Fu sighed. Kiba, let's not waste time here. Both of them immediately moved it to should be cast into the abyss tier. It's so boring, I'm not even going to waste my breath. Kiba scoffed. Ouch. Sounds about right. Worst. Marvel. Movie. Ever. Moving from a bad sequel to a good one, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Fu announced. Kiba slid it into Royal immediately. This was fantastic. The boat scene where he fought Batroc. The elevator fight. The bridge fight. And the final fight with the Winter Soldier. All of them were brilliant. Fu slid it up to outstanding. This one was really good. Winter Soldier is a great villain. If I was capable of feeling fear, I probably would have been afraid of him. This is also the movie that made me really like Captain America. He's everything a hero should be. No matter who's in his way, if they're doing something bad, Captain America will fight them, even if he has to fight America. Fu explained. Also, I have a feeling that this is one of those movies I don't fully understand, and when I get older it might get better or worse. What's there to understand? It's about superheroes fighting supervillains. Kiba scoffed. Don't overthink things, brother. Oh, Kiba. Didn't like the first one so much. Second one was amazing. Cap still has one of the best trilogies. Now for the weird one. Guardians of the Galaxy. Fu continued. Fu proceeded to put this film in entertaining. It had some nice music. The characters were likable. And it was very funny. But the villain was boring. And the fight scenes were just okay. Yeah, I wish Groot had better fights in this movie. Kiba slid the movie into merely fine. The only real part one liked was the comedy. The characters were funny enough to keep this interesting. Drax is the best though. Rip Groot. He comes back. Does he? Or is it clone Groot? Apparently it is some kind of clone or offspring. In my headcanon, Groot is still Groot. Fu got ready to continue, but Kiba suddenly jumped in. Age of Ultron is in royal tier. And anyone who wants to say otherwise can fight me. Kiba challenged. Kiba, remember that everyone can have their own opinions, Fu repeated what Izuku had told Kiba countless times. Yes, everyone can have their wrong opinions. Kiba scoffed. I hear all this stuff about how Age of Ultron is the worst Avengers movie and how people think the first one was better. But Age of Ultron is better in every way. Just the opening fight is better than any fight in the first movie. And Hulk vs. Iron Man is one of the most amazing fights in these three phases. Ultron is a great villain that's more entertaining than any of the villains before him. It's going in royal. Fu sighed and slid the movie into entertaining. Betrayal. Kiba shouted. I agree with pretty much everything Kiba said, but Quicksilver's death was stupid, Fu explained. Kiba opened her mouth to object, but then she closed it and thought about it a bit before crossing her arms together and pouting. Fine. I'll accept it. But I'm keeping it in royal. Well, it did have some good fights. Ultron was nothing like he was in the comics. Who cares, lol? I was just really disappointed they didn't do much with Quicksilver. Alright, before Kiba starts breaking things, let's move on to Ant-Man, Fu said. Kiba once again took the lead here and put the movie into royal. Ant-Man is one of the best Avengers. Kiba stated. He's just a really nice guy, trying to be a good dad. And the fights in this movie were a lot better than I thought they would be. The shrinking was a lot cooler than I expected it to be. And it only gets better in the future. Fu nodded as he slid it into outstanding. I don't think people understand how great it is to have a loving dad until their own parents abandon them. Ant-Man is my favorite Avenger as well. He's funny, smart, his powers are interesting, and he's a great dad. Hank Pym is also a good character. He's still trying to be a good dad, but he's not as good at it as Scott. The only thing that makes this movie less good is Yellow Jacket. He's not really a good villain until the end of the movie when he puts on the suit. Man, this one was personal for them, huh? Never really thought of it that way. Scott's great. His powers don't make any sense though. Neither do ours. Now for the last Steve Rogers Captain American film, Captain America Civil War, Fu announced. Fu promptly put the movie into outstanding. This movie is great. Looking back, I can see how things led up to this. Steve and Tony were kinda always opposites to each other. And when superheroes have different opinions to one another, there is only one thing they can do. Fu said. They fight. Kiba shouted as she put it into royal. So much fighting. And with all the Avengers. Except Hulk and Thor, which is a shame, but that airport battle was one of the best fights in the 3 phases. The only reason I didn't put it higher is because Zemo's plan is a little confusing and Vision wasn't really used as much as he should have been, Fu explained. Pa. Who cares? It's an amazing action-filled movie from beginning to end. Kiba stated. And that's all I care about. Yeah, Vision wasn't done justice for a while. Wish Hulk and Thor were in it. Airport scene alone puts it in outstanding. Spider-Man. You didn't mention Spider-Man? They'll get to him. Now for Doctor Strange. Fu continued. Fu slid the movie into merely fine. It's a weird movie, Fu admitted. But looking past that, it's pretty much just like the Iron Man movie but with magic. And the same uninteresting villain. Or villains, I guess. Kiba seemed conflicted. This movie is truly strange. Its fights are interesting. And the way the Doctor defeats such a powerful entity is truly creative. Everything is just strange. For perplexing me and keeping from being bored, I will put it into entertaining. It's Iron Man. On drugs. It really is. At least the magic looks cool. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Fu said. Kiba put the movie into outstanding. By far an improvement to the first one. Funnier than the last one by far. And all the amazing colors and backgrounds, it really makes me feel as if I've left Earth behind. And the fight scenes, while there are less of them than I'd like, are more creative and amusing to watch. Kiba said, and I cannot express how much joy I had watching Ego meet his end. Yeah, as it turns out, watching a bad parent get what he deserves is satisfying for us. Who knew? Fu said sarcastically as he moved the move into outstanding. As Kiba says, the background, coloring, and designs make the most of the space thing. And I really like it. And I felt something for Star-Lord. My dad didn't kill my mom, but I can know what it's like to realize that your parents is a terrible person. That one hit me. Can we find Fu's parents? And see if they are also unkillable? Why don't we just find all their parents and do that? Stan Gamora. Read the room, dude. Moving on. We have the first Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man Homecoming. Fu continued. Fu and Kiba both put it into merely fine. It's passable. I feel like there could have been more cool web-slinging scenes. And definitely some cooler fights. Kiba commented. Spider-Man feels like another character that is not as powerful as he should be. Shiruku is half his age and I've seen her fight in more impressive ways than he does. And she doesn't even have spider sense. I just really don't get teenagers. Fu shrugged. The villain is good. Though. But isn't he just an evil Falcon? Who Spider-Man already fought and almost beat. I feel like he shouldn't have been that hard for Spider-Man to beat. And I know he was using surprise attacks, but he has a spider sense. Surprise attacks shouldn't work. There's nothing really wrong with the movie, it's just fine. But it gave us the best live-action Spider-Man. Yeah, the spider sense didn't really seem to work for a while, for no reason. They made the Vulture actually threatening. It deserves an outstanding for that alone. Fu didn't even try to announce the next one, as he knew what was coming. And the next one was Thor Ragnarok. Kiba shouted with pure excitement. Kiba then put that movie in the royal tier so fast she almost broke her mouse. This movie is the best movie out of all of these movies. Kiba said with a tone that left no room for argument. You said movie times. Fu pointed out. I don't care. This is what a movie about a thunder god should be like. Constantly keeping me entertained with either hilarious shenanigans or amazing fights where the main weapons are lightning and fist. And this is one of Hulk's best showings. And Valkyrie is the best female character in these movies. I don't care if she's a drunk. She is awesome and can take down spaceships with her bare hands. Loki is the best he's ever been, and the get help part reminded me of something I'd do with Fu. Hela is one of the best villains ever. That part where she takes down the entire Asgardian army. After that, I asked Dad if I could use throwing swords, but he said that it was too dangerous, which I think is untrue, but then Dad had me throw a pencil and I may have accidentally impaled Fu with it, which was just bad luck, but Dad didn't believe me and said no. Anyway, those scenes that looked like moving paintings were some of the best parts, and my favorite was when Thor descended from the sky like the god he is, cloaked in lightning and death, ready to take on an army of the dead. And Kiba was about to continue, but Fu cut her off. Kiba, you getting Dad's muttering habit, Fu informed her. And? Kiba raised an eyebrow. Caretaker is one of the greatest people to walk this earth. I fail to see how picking up habits from him could be a bad thing. And these people should feel honored to hear my voice, so I doubt they'll complain. It's true. We won't. It's so cute. She called him Dad instead of Caretaker. Alright, well, I really like this movie too. Kiba basically said everything that can really be said here. So, let's move on. Fu said as he put Thor Ragnarok into Royal. So now we have Black Panther. Kiba moved the movie into Outstanding. This movie was very entertaining. It starts off with Black Panther striking fear into the hearts of criminals. Black Panther is incredibly striking throughout the movie, and he's not the only one. It's as if being Wakandan instantly makes you a fierce fighter. And Wakanda itself is still one of the most interesting places in the MCU. Killmonger is a worthy opponent, however, and their conflict makes for a very amusing spectacle. Also, war rhinos. Those were an excellent touch. Wakanda forever, Fu said as he slid the movie into Outstanding. Wakanda forever. Wakanda forever. Wakanda forever. Wakanda forever. Continuing the streak of excellence, Avengers Infinity War. Kiba introduced. Kiba quickly put the movie into Royal. The only movie out of all of these that could even compete with Thor Ragnarok. A movie worthy of its epic title, as it has battles spanning across the universe, featuring almost every hero in the MCU at this point. Except for Ant-Man, unfortunately. And Hawkeye. But aside from those two, everyone else gets amazing fights and action except for the Hulk. Kiba sighed in annoyance. Once again, they do injustice towards the Hulk. He has one fight, which he definitely should have won, but didn't, and then we don't see him for the rest of the film. Kiba reviewed. Thanos is a truly fearsome foe, and with his Infinity Gauntlet, he managed to outmatch the heroes. Even if only temporarily. Which was quite surprising. Overall, a very excellent film with a few small disappointments. While it is disappointing that Ant-Man doesn't appear, and Hawkeye too. Overall, it is a very good movie. A sad one, too. I almost felt something when Gamora, Loki, and Vision died. Not when the snap happened, because I already knew they would come back. But it was shocking to see the villain win in a movie. Fu said he put the movie into Royal. What do you expect? He is inevitable. This does put a smile on my face. Reality is often disappointing. But not this time. Perfectly balanced. As all things should be. Insert Infinity War meme here. Now we move on to yet another excellent movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Kiba said eagerly. As one might predict by her tone, Kiba put the movie right into Royal. Ant-Man continues being my favorite Avenger. Reminding much of Caretaker in some moments. And the action here far surpasses the first film. Wasp rivals Valkyrie for my favorite female character, however, she can be a bit of a stick in the mud at times. Ghost was an interesting antagonist. I like how different her powers were from our heroes. And I still do love those three morons that follow Ant-Man around. They just amuse me. And the ending was extremely satisfying. Kiba said. Until it wasn't. Fu pointed out. But ignoring that, I can agree with what Kiba says. I'm not a fan of that one guy Sonny, something I think. He was only here to give punching bags for everyone. But other than that, it's a great movie. Fu slid it into Royal. Scott Lang for life. Wasp for life. Meh. Underrated. Now on to, wait, did we forget to watch Captain Marvel? Fu asked as he looked at the next movie. What are you, oh? Kiba looked at what Fu was talking about and saw that they had in fact missed Captain Marvel. So that's why her appearance in Endgame seemed weird. Fu deadpanned. Well, this is unfortunate. Oh well, moving on. Kiba sighed. On to Avengers Endgame. Neither Fu nor Kiba actually placed it immediately. Rather, it looked like they took time to try and figure out where it should go. This movie for most of it was only merely fine until the last parts, which make me want to put it in Royal. Kiba commented as she made an I'm thinking face. I thought it was in Entreating for a while. But I agree the final battle may have brought it up to Royal. Fu said. So actually, I'm just going to make things similar and just put it in Royal. Agreed, Kiba said as she also placed that movie in the top tier. Captain America using Mjolnir makes up for half of the talking scenes. And the Avengers Assemble moment made up for the rest of them. And the rest of that battle made up for what they did to Hulk. Ugh. Overall, the good far outweighs the bad. The part where Captain America faces against Thanos' army with that one shot that makes it completely hopeless, but he still gets up to fight anyway. Fu described. And the endings for both Iron Man and Captain America would be very heartwarming if I could properly feel emotions. As someone who can properly feel emotions, I can confirm that Captain America's ending was very emotionally satisfying. He fought for the universe and now he can finally be happy. Iron Man should have got the same ending, but no. He died instead. Kiba crossed her arms and pouted. His poor daughter now doesn't have a father. That poor little girl. At least she still has one living parent, one more than we had when our parents snapped. Fu quipped. Kiba gagged. Fu, that was both terrible and in poor taste. Where on earth did you get that? Kay? I take that as an insult, Fu said in his monotone. And since you want to go there. When Iron Man died, Kiba started crying and saying, no, don't you dare. You have a daughter to go home to. You can't die, and Dad had to comfort her for the fun dash. Fu didn't get any further as in the time it took him to say all that, Kiba had run over to him and ripped his head off, causing a fountain of blood to spray from his neck stump until Kiba kicked his body off the chair and out of the sight of the camera. Welp. Never mind. She almost did it. She almost made it. It was so close. Per Fu. Queen Crimson, nice. There were a few seconds of silence as Kiba made her way back to her chair. The only noise was the gushing of Fu's blood off-screen. Eventually, Kiba got back on camera and settled back down. My apologies, it appears a villain broke into our house and ripped my brother's head off. I took care of that, so don't worry. And also please ignore the obvious lies my brother was spewing beforehand. Anyway, Spider-Man Far From Home. Great movie. Didn't like teen romance? Better action than the first one. And the villains were amazing. This movie goes into outstanding. Anyway, remember the Q&A is tomorrow, don't miss it, bye. And with that, Kiba promptly ended the stream. It was about the time. The stream had already started, however, the camera wasn't turned on. And so the viewers waited anxiously for their queen to arrive. And then the real show started. Greetings, my faithful servants. Kiba introduced. The camera layout was different from her normal one. This time it was more panned out and farther away, although the reason for this was obvious, as instead of just showing Kiba and perhaps one other person, this time there were 9. Izuku, Kiba, Fu, Sanson, Yonda, Shiruku, Kei, Otoko, and Netsu were all sitting at one of the big tables in the cafeteria. Izuku having a computer in front of him, showing that he was the one setting up and controlling the stream. Izuku was also wearing a green and purple cloak. One that he had Shiruku make for him that allowed him to hide his face. Oh my god, it's the whole family. Wait, it's not the whole family, there are a few missing. Where's Kai? Who cares? So many cute kids. Who is that guy in the cloak? A servant? Maybe an older brother? Maybe he's the mysterious caretaker? Nah, he looks too young. Maybe he's just short. You think caretaker is that big guy in the cloak? The guy that looks like he's made of moss? I don't know. Why is one of them on fire? Why wouldn't one of them be one fire? As you all know, today is the family Q&A I have been preparing for quite some time, Kiba announced before motioning out towards her family. As such, I have gathered as much as my family as I could. Unfortunately, some are rather averse to the camera and will not be joining us. But I did manage to finally convince Caretaker to show himself. Kiba pointed at Izuku. My servants, this man is Caretaker, the one who made all of this possible. Feel grateful for his time. It is precious after all. Wait, that is Caretaker. He's so small. He looks like a teenager. I can't see his face. Not what I was expecting. Big things come in small packages. I'm going to assume you didn't mean that in the perverted sense. Alien Queen, hey guys. It's me, Mina. Can't wait for the questions. Hey. Izuku timidly introduced himself. Thank you all for watching Kiba's streams. She takes a lot of pride in her viewership. And yeah, I am a bit young. Caretaker's age doesn't really matter. So let's not waste time discussing it. Kiba dismissed. Now to introduce you to my siblings. Kiba motioned towards Fu, Sansan, and Shiruku. You all should already be familiar with these three. My right hand Fu and Kyosei. My arch-rival Sansan and my other rival Shiruku. Please stop calling me that. Shiruka sighed in annoyance. Just because I'm strong doesn't mean I want to fight. It wasn't that Shiruku was averse to fighting. She would if she felt like it. But because of her strength, Kiba viewed her as a rival, and would challenge her to contests and fights far more often than she cared for. Noted and ignored. Now allow me to introduce those who you all may be less familiar. Kiba announced. Hi, I'm Keseki. But don't call me that. Call me Kei. Don't make that me Snake. Kei giggled. Everyone but Izuku and Netsu proceeded to groan at her terrible joke. Even Otoko. And while Izuku was holding in a groan, Netsu was giggling a bit. Hey, me Snake. Oh god no. Oh no, she puns. Why have I been hurt in such a way? It wasn't that bad. Yes, it was. Her snakes are so cute. Oh. My turn. I'm Netsu. My quirk is Flame Dominance. It lets me control fire. And I'm gonna be the #1 hero. Netsu said with enthusiasm. It's like a little Endeavor. But happy. If he's happy then he's not like Endeavor. Sorry, little one, but that position belongs to Lady Kiba. Ha! We'll see about that. Kiba smirked at Netsu, who smirked back. You two, behave, Izuku told the two of them, causing them to settle back down. Oh man, Daddy stepped in. I still can't believe he's their dad. Alien Queen, me neither. Froppy, it's pretty hard to believe. Why? Izuku sighed, before looking over to Yonda and Otoko. Kiba, shouldn't you introduce them? Oh, right. Thank you, Caretaker. Kiba quickly cleared her throat. Those two are Yonda and Otoko. They're mute, kind of. Otoko is fully mute, but Yonda can speak telepathically. Unfortunately, you can't hear it over a camera, so Caretaker will be telling you what she's saying. And since Otoko can't speak, Yonda will use her mind-reading ability to speak for him, which Caretaker will then say out loud. Wow, sounds complicated. Does that boy even have a mouth? That thing is a kid. He's so tall. What a cute girl. Now it's time to introduce the last person who will be joining us. Kiba said Caretaker. Izuku nodded and started pressing a few keys on the computer. Then, in the corner of the screen, another screen popped up showing a camera feed of Kai in his room. Kai, you're on, Izuku said into the laptop's microphone. I am. Hello everyone? Kai greeted. Kai. He is here. I guess he would have been a bit too big to be with everyone else. Big boy. Biggest boy. Kai was a bit too big to be with us, so Caretaker came up with this idea, Kiba explained. Once again, remember to give him your thanks. There's really no need. Izuku blushed under his hood. Thank you, Caretaker. Thank oh great Caretaker for delivering this unto us. Red Riot, thanks bro. Alien Queen, thanks Midori. Uravity, yes there is a need. Izuku blushed even more and hid his face even more. Now, this has gone on long enough. Let us move on to the questions. Kiba announced impatiently. Now, naturally, I will not be able to answer all your questions. Caretaker will be selecting them, so please try to gain his attention if you'd like your question to be answered. Now, begin. Immediately after Kiba said that questions started flooding in and Izuku was having a hard time keeping up with everything. Alright, let's start with this. What are all of your quirks? Izuku asked. A simple question to start with. My quirk is Blood Boost. When the life juice of my victims flows through my fangs, my body regains its true power and allows me to dash. Kiba got cut off. Blood boost allows her to enhance her strength, speed, and toughness whenever she consumes blood. The more she exerts herself, the faster her blood reserves drain. If she doesn't drink enough blood, she dies. Fu explained, much to Kiba's annoyance. Wait, she just dies? I would gladly give all my blood to Lady Kiba. Same. Alien Queen, same. Invisible Girl, same. Can I just give like, a quarter of my blood? No. All your blood. Hey. Kiba protested. Kiba, we have a lot of questions, so try to answer these as quickly as possible, Izuku told her. Kiba folded her arms and pouted. Fine. My quirk lets me regenerate from any injury so long as I've eaten enough meat. If I'm low on meat, then I'll go into a zombie-like rampage and try to eat any meat I see. Fu explained. Including human meat. Oh wow, he really is a zombie. Oh, so that's why he's dangerous. At first, I didn't think a regeneration quirk was all that problematic, but the problem isn't the regeneration, it's the eating people part. Wait, does that mean Fu could die if he doesn't eat enough? My quirk also makes me immune to a lot of things like poisons and most mental quirks. Fu continued. And it makes me immune to pain and feelings, kind of. I can taste anything either. Which sucks. 'Cause food is great. Netsu added. Oh. My quirk lets me control fire. But it's like, really strong. So it's hard to control. Which is why I'm on fire. Because I can't turn it off. Wait, so he's always on fire? Kinda basic. Simple but effective. Shoto Todoroki, trust me. He's plenty powerful. My quirk wakes my body acid. Sanson jumped in. Like an upgraded sludge villain. Goodness, she is overpowered. Can't even hit her. Per Kiba. My turn. My quirk turns people to stone when they look at my eyes. Kay eagerly explained. And it gives me snakes for hair. I don't know why. But I love them. Too bright. Too pure. Sunshine Snake Child. So that's why she's wearing that thing on her face. Would that work through screens? I don't think so. No. Kay's quirk doesn't work through screens, Izuku explained. He thought people might be afraid of being turned to stone, so he decided to put those fears to rest before it started hurting the viewership. Kai, why don't you go next? Okay, Dad. My quirk makes me. Kai explained simply. Well, that was quick. To be fair, it's pretty easy to figure out what his quirk is. Don't forget about the poison blood. Fu reminded him. Oh right? My blood is poison. Kai had honestly forgotten about that part. Wait, what? Like the actual Hydra? I'll go next. My quirk is Spider Queen. It gives me all the abilities of a spider and it lets me command spiders. Shiruku explained, allowing a spider to crawl up her arm to demonstrate. She really is Muffet. Insert spider dance. Spider Girl. The last two are Otoko and Yonda, Izuku explained on their behalf. Otoko's quirk, on top of mutating him to look the way he does, also makes it so that way if you touch him while feeling any significant amount of fear, you will combust into flames. Oh. That explains why he looks like that. Now that all makes sense. And Yonda's quirk basically replaces all her auditory sense with telepathic abilities. Izuku continued. Instead of speaking, she can communicate with people telepathically. And instead of hearing people's voices, she can hear their thoughts. Oh, so there is like no privacy around her. So she's kinda deaf but not really? Secrets begone. Relationships are gonna be hard for her in the future. That last comment got Izuku thinking. Oh my god, it will be hard for her to sustain a relationship in the future. Well, I guess I just have to hope that all works out. Caretaker. Kiba shouted, snapping Izuku out of his thoughts. Please move on to the next question. Sorry. Izuku apologized before quickly looking through the chat for more questions. Alright, so, Kay, what is your favorite hairstyle? Snake style? Kay frowned for a moment. Just this. I can't have a snake style because forcing my snakes to stay still in a style for so long hurts them. Don't despair, sister, you only need the one hairstyle to look beautiful, Kiba told her while petting one of her snakes. Ah. Wholesome queen. Wholesome queens. Press X to stan. X. Izuku smiled and made a note to praise Kiba for this later before he dived back into the chat for questions. Okay, Shiruku, is it true you make clothes for everyone in the house and that you make them out of your silk? Yes. Shiruku answered proudly before thinking about it for a moment and frowning. Well, not everyone. Sanson refuses to wear clothing, and I haven't met Fukinoko, so I can't make clothing for her. I also can't make clothing for Netsu because he's always on fire. I can't make Kyosei clothes either because he's inside Fu. I say making clothes for me counts as making it for both of us, Fu added. Okay then. The only people I haven't made clothes for are Sanson, Netsu, Fukinoko, and Kai. But I'm working on making Kai something. Shiruka continued. Oh. What is it? Kai asked, shaking his head in excitement. You'll have to wait and see, Shiruka said, crossing her arms with a very satisfied smile on her face. Is it a scarf? How much silk would that take? All their clothes come from her, but can Kai wear pants? A neck sock. Izuka looked, once more, for a new question. Netsu, since you're always on fire, do you ever take a bath? Is the only time you're not on fire is when you're fully submerged in water? Nope. Whenever I go into water, it all just turns to steam. Netsu explained. But I don't need to take a bath because I'm always on fire, no germs can get on me. Still is kinda gross, Shiruka muttered. Probably always smells like fire. Toasty. Germs getting fired. Okay, next one. Oh my Queen of Darkness, I must ask, will you still stream for us lowly peons while still being a pro hero? Izuka repeated one of the questions. Of course. Did you think I would continue doing this if I didn't find it amusing? Kiba asked haughtily. I do this for my amusement, not yours. So of course I'll be continuing this for quite some time. So long as you all continue to entertain me. Of course, Lady Kiba. We live to serve you. Thank you, Lady Kiba. Hail Lady Kiba. And long may she stream. Hail. 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 Izuka smiled at how excited the chat got. All of them were eager to watch his daughter's antics. All of them loved her. He was so glad that she could finally get the affection she deserved. There were, of course, a few detractors. But he quickly blocked them before the kids ever got to see them. Alright, this one is for Yanda. I know this may seem dumb since you can read minds, but do you know sign language? I know it's redundant, but I'm just curious. Izuka read. Yanda shook her head. There were a few moments of silence as Yanda's mouth moved but nothing came out. The viewers realized that she was giving a response, they just couldn't hear it. Yanda says that it's pointless to learn sign language, Izuku explained. Yeah, it does seem like a lot of work to do something she could ultimately do with her quirk. Not everyone even knows sign language. She doesn't even need to use it to talk to other deaf people. Okay, new question for Sanson. How do you feel about being Kiba's rival? And have you ever lost to Kiba? Izuku asked. Sanson looked at Kiba and smirked. Mwah. Never. Kiba's strong. She's a good rival. And she's hard to fight. But she can't hurt Sanson. So I always win. Kiba pouted and looked away from Sanson's smug look. Her quirk acts as a counter to mine, that's all. One day I will overcome this obstacle and triumph over her. Mark my words. Sanson just continued to look smug. One day, my lady. One day. I really don't see how someone with a quirk that lets them punch really hard beat a person who is immune to punching. All she has to do is be as strong as All Might and do what he did to the sludge villain. You can do it, Lady Kiba. Red Riot. Yeah, she can. Trust me, she hits hard. Dark Shadow can affirm. She hits like a truck. No, 20 trucks. Tsukuyami, she still has a long way to go before she gets that strong. Okay, next question. Izuka searched for a new question. Kai, do you ever go on casual flights around the area for fun, or does caretaker not let you do that because it could cause a panic? Dad, let's fly. I even have this special thing that opens up my roof and lets me fly out. Kai explained enthusiastically. I can only fly around the forest, but it's fine. It's still fun. I take my brothers and sisters with me sometimes. Yeah, flying around with Kai is a blast. Netsu spoke up, pumping his fist to show his excitement. He's a bit slow sometimes, but he's so big that it's kinda fun to fly around him and between his heads. Although you do crash into him a lot. Kiba pointed out smugly. I also like to fly with them on my manticore. We're thinking of making some special games we can play in the sky together. Quidditch. Imagine just being able to casually say have a manticore. Imagine just casually being able to go flying. God, I wish I could do that. Uravity, one day. One day I'll be able to fly. Okay, next one is about Otoko. Otoko, is your size difficult to deal with sometimes, and how do you feel about being so much taller than everyone else except Kai? Izuku asked. There was a bit of silence as Otoko had to think out his answer, and then Yanda had to say it with her telepathic ability. Okay, so Otoko says that it's weird. It's weird to see people so short and think that they're the same age or older than him. It's actually the same with Kai. Seeing something so big and knowing that it's close to his age is kinda freaky. Izuku explained. I know, right? When I look at Kai I think he's some ancient monster. But he's just like us. Netsa said. It is kinda weird. But everything in this house is weird. Fu shrugged. Being abnormal simply means you're better than normal, Kiba stated proudly. That is, a positive way to look at it, Izuku said. Truth. Alien Queen, yeah. That's the way Lady Kiba. She has blessed us with such wise words. She truly is a queen. Invisible girl, I love you Kiba. Froppy, honestly not a bad way of thinking. Okay, next question. Caretaker, do you have a favorite child? If not, who is the easiest to take care of? Izuku read out the question. Well, I don't have a favorite child. I love all of them equally regardless of how much trouble they can cause at times. All the children then proceeded to look directly at Kiba when he said that. Kiba squinted at them with suspicion. Are you all trying to imply that I am the most difficult to care for? Yes. Said all the kids, including Yanda, although the viewers couldn't hear it. No one here has broken as many things in this house as you, Shiruku told her. Not even the time me and Sanson destroyed some entire rooms. And if Fu weren't Fu you would have killed him a long time ago. That's not even mentioning that out of everyone, despite your quirk, you somehow managed to hurt yourself more than anyone else, Fu added. Well, it's not my fault. My power is just so immense that sometimes I can't control it and things like that happen. Kiba defended herself. All the kids gave her looks that showed they weren't buying it and so Izuku decided to step in. I haven't really thought of who is easiest to take care of, Izuku said out loud. I'd have to say Yami. Most of the others can occasionally cause issues with their quirks, but he's actually been nothing but helpful. What about Eri? Kei asked with a cute head tilt. Well, I love Eri, but Izuku knew Eri was watching. And so he didn't want to say she could accidentally kill me if I'm not careful while helping her train her quirk. Her quirk can be somewhat difficult to handle at times. Yeah, I guess the kid who can make an army for you would be the most inherently useful. Ya think? Imagine having a demon wolf help carry your bags. Kiba's worth the trouble. Alien Queen, hard agree. Invisible Girl, hard agree. Alright. Izuku dived back into the chat. Next question. Alright, next question. Izuku moved on. As Izuku looked through the chat, there were a couple questions that kept popping up. Such as people asking about his age and about his own quirk. These questions he didn't have any intention of answering. However, one question he wasn't sure about that kept popping up was this. What were your lives like before getting adopted? This was a very loaded question. However, what kept Izuku from dismissing it outright was the fact that kids like Eri and Kyoki weren't present. Most of the kids here had pretty much accepted their pasts and were willing to move past them. With the exception of Yanda, but he could always just not have her answer. Caretaker. Kiba once again snapped Izuku back into reality. You froze again. Oh right, sorry. Izuku quickly apologized before looking back at the chat to see the question kept popping up. He took a few more seconds to decide whether or not to ask it, and in the end, he thought that leaving it to the children was the best way to go about it. So you kids don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what were your lives like before I adopted you? That question had varying reactions. Kai, Shiruku, Otoko, and Netsa didn't have any notable reactions. If anything, they seemed a little confused as to why anyone would want to know about that. Kiba also seemed confused and a little upset and uncomfortable. But not overly so. Fu kept his typical deadpan expression. To be expected. Sanson for just a second actually froze before she started moving again, and even then she looked a bit less ecstatic. Kei seemed unaffected. About what Izuku expected from her. Yanda, on the other hand, was just sad. The look of sadness on her face made Izuku regret asking it almost immediately. Why do I have the feeling they have a range of backstories that go from bad to worse? I feel bad for asking. Alf. Like I said, none of you have to answer if you don't want to. Izuku reiterated. I'll answer, Kei spoke up before looking at the camera. I don't remember much of my life before my quirk, but I think it was good. But after I got my quirk, the people taking care of me didn't want me anymore because my quirk was a problem. So they threw me out of the house and told me to never come back. Fucking shitty parents. God damn it, I hate people sometimes. Oh, this is taking a dark turn. We asked for it. Red Riot, not manly. If you have a kid, then you have to take responsibility. You can't just kick him out when things get hard. And if you were gonna give them up, give them to an orphanage or something. Don't just leave them out on the streets. After that, I lived on the streets for a while. I can't control my quirk, so a bunch of accidents kept happening and I turned people to stone when I didn't mean to. Kay continued in a somber tone. And people kept calling me a monster and said that I was hideous, and they said lots of mean things. People are the worst. How is it that kids like this always end up surrounded by terrible people? Dust to dust, because there is an abundance of terrible people. Why didn't the heroes help? Queen Crimson, what a silly question. Heroes don't help with things like this. Silly. Bloodcurdle, yeah. Doesn't give them any glory. And then after that, a bad man found me. And kidnapped me. Kay revealed you could now see a bit of the pain on her face as she relieved some bad memories, although she still seemed mostly okay considering what she was talking about. He kept me locked in a cage with a blindfold on and took me out so he could steal from places. He would make me use my quirk to turn everyone to stone, and if I tried to close my eyes he would hit me until I opened them. What the fuck? I'm gonna be sick. Oh, okay. Alien Queen, I think I want to vomit. That is disgusting. Invisible Girl, that's low even for a villain. Uravity, Kay, you per sweet girl. I'm so sorry. But then everything got better. Because one day Dad took him down and rescued me. Kay's expression brightened up significantly and she smiled brightly at the camera. Dad knocked him out stone cold and went to untie me, but he accidentally looked at my eyes and turned to stone. Sorry, Dad. Izuka smiled and walked over to her, giving her a quirk hug to reassure her. It's fine. It wasn't your fault. None of that was. You didn't choose your quirk. Kay's smile widened even further and she hugged her father back. Ah. Alien Queen, ah. Invisible Girl, ah. Queen Crimson, ah. Izuka returned to his seat and Kay continued her story. When he went back to normal, he adopted me. Which was the best day ever. I got a new dad. I got a new little sister. I got to live in a house again and I didn't need to eat garbage anymore. It's so bittersweet to see how happy she is when she says she didn't need to eat garbage anymore. Good on you, caretaker. Shoto Todoroki, good job, Midoriya. This world needs more good parents. Red Riot, he saved her himself and took her in even after she turned him to stone. Now that's manly. Bloodcurdle, that's what a true hero does. That's such a sad story. So glad it had a happy ending. Creati, I still struggle with the fact that a parent actually condemned a child to such a fate. Alien Queen, we stand Datariya. Especially Uravity. Uravity, Mina. Invisible Girl, Stan. 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 Poor girl. I can't imagine how hard that must have been. Well, on the bright side, she seems to be doing okay now. Kay was ready to let her other siblings tell their stories, but when she looked around she saw that her story had a serious effect on her siblings. Fu's expression was mostly neutral, but there was a bit of anger in his eyes. Just a bit. But even that was a lot for someone like Fu. Kiba and Netsu looked furious. Like they wanted to hunt down and destroy the people who gave their sister such a hard time. Kai, Yanda, and Shiroku were actually crying. Sanson and Otoko, well, it was hard to tell what they were feeling just looking at their expression, but they certainly didn't seem happy. Things were bad, but they're not bad anymore. I have a great family now with lots of brothers and sisters. And they're all really nice. Kay said happily, looking around at her siblings with a huge smile on her face. Trying to reassure her siblings. So I don't really care about all that bad stuff anymore. Because now I'm happy and everything's going to be fine. Because you guys rock. Such a precious ball of sunshine. Protect. I will guard that smile with my life. Alien Queen, I will fight for that smile. Invisible Girl, I will kill for that smile. Queen Crimson, ditto. As Kay was winding down after finishing her story, she was suddenly hugged by Shiroku. Thankfully, she was gentle. I'm so sorry that happened to you, Shiroku told her, some tears rolling down her face. I swear I will be the best sister I can be. So you'll never be that sad again. Yeah, and if any villain wants to try and touch you, they have to go through me. Netsu said, making a fireball rise above his hand. Of course I will protect my family with all my might, so if anyone would like to call you a monster or lay a hand on you again, I will personally rip their heads from their shoulders, Kiba promised. You don't need to do all that. Kay smiled and blushed. Murdering someone would make everything Dad's doing go up in flames. There were some groans from most of the kids, but Netsu and even Kai laughed a bit. I think you're funny, sister, Kai admitted. I don't, but for some reason, I'm laughing as I'm crying. Same, man. Same. Makes me almost want to adopt, almost. As someone who has adopted children, this warms my heart. Don't get all cheery yet, that was just one of their backstories. Fuck. Well, if we are sharing our backstories, then I guess I'll go next. Shiruka stepped up after wiping her face clean. Mine is not very interesting. I was born with my quirk, so I always looked like this. My parents gave me up at birth and handed me over to DC, and I was raised there for most of my life. It was fine, I guess. I didn't go hungry or have to eat garbage or anything. I had a comfy bed and a TV, and they even gave me some stuff to make clothes. But it's a lot better here. I was so alone back there. And I could never go outside. And sometimes I would hear the people talking about me. About how ugly I was and about how they hated taking care of me. Now I have a daddy who loves me and a family that cares and actually wears the clothes I make. Okay, not nearly as bad. Still pretty bad. Poor Spider Girl. She had a bunch of material stuff but was given no love. I'm so glad she's in a better place now. Kriati, none of this feels right. I was raised by DOC too. Kai spoke up, looking a bit sheepish. They didn't like me very much. They yelled at me a lot. They said I was such a hassle and that I should try to make their jobs easier. I didn't have a TV or anything, so I just sat around and napped a lot. It was very boring. And lonely. What shitty government agents. I know taking care of someone of that size would be hard, but that's just fucked up to talk to a kid like that. Disgusting. Uravity, and Kai is such a sweetheart too. How could anyone talk to him like that? I was taken by DOC too. Netsu was the next to speak. But I wasn't raised there. My parents gave me up because I kept setting everything on fire by accident. I was kept in a room and they didn't let me go outside, and I couldn't fly around a lot. It was sucky. Okay so far. The least tragic backstory. Man, I'm so glad Daddaria is getting those kids out of there. Being lonely fucking sucks. Daddy. Izuka turned his head to Yonda as she heard her speaking out to him. Yes, dear? He responded. Otoko says that his backstory was like Shiruku's, where he was lonely, and the people taking care of him hated looking at him. Yonda repeated what she was told. It was very boring, and he's glad to be here instead of there. Otoko nodded to affirm what she said was true. The other children gave him sympathetic looks, and Sanson actually moved over to him and wrapped around his body to hug and comfort him. As Izuka spoke what Yonda told him to the camera, Fu turned to Kiba. I think I should tell our story. What? Kiba glared at her brother. Why shouldn't I be the one to tell it? I am an amazing storyteller. Because you're overdramatic, Fu explained. Knowing you'll go on for hours about a small detail and over-exaggerate things. By the time you finish talking, the Q&A would end. And the others wouldn't even get to speak. You've already spoken more than everyone else here combined, and you're gonna speak more after, so just let me do this. Kiba pouted heavily and crossed her arms. Humph. Fu sighed. Please grant me this honor, Lady Kiba, Queen of Eternal Darkness. Kiba's pout lessened, but she still didn't look particularly pleased. Fine. Thank you, Fu told her. Alright, does anyone else want to share? Izuka had just finished talking about Otoko's origin and was ready to move on. I'll go, Fu said before looking at the camera. Since me and Kiba were together for most of it, I'll be telling both of ours, but Kiba's definitely gonna chime in at some points. Of course, Kiba said with much self-assurance. Well, we've already said that our birth parents didn't want us because of our quirks. Fu reiterated. But after that we were on the streets. And we weren't doing too well since Kiba needs blood to live and I need meat. We had to steal and attack people just to survive. She would never kill anyone, but Kiba needed their blood. Wait. Lady Kiba attacked people. She had to survive. Queen Crimson, you gotta do what you gotta do. Alien Queen, Lady Kiba is completely innocent. If she didn't get blood, she would have died. If anything, we should blame the crappy parents again. Invisible Girl, yeah. The parents are the problem. Uravity, Kiba didn't choose her quirk. She didn't have a choice. Kriati, it is squarely the parents' responsibility to care for their children's needs. If they made the choice to abandon that responsibility and the child had to seek out other means of sustaining themselves, then any harm done by that child should be blamed on the parents. If they wanted to give up Kiba, then they should have given her to the DOC. Granted, it has become apparent that the DC are not overly capable, but it would have been far better than just leaving her out on the streets. They knew Kiba needed blood to survive, so when they kicked her, they knew they were either condemning other people to get attacked by her so she could live, or they condemned their own daughter to die. Shoto Todoroki, what she said. It was really hard before I met Kiba. It's not that I felt lonely. It's that I felt nothing. And that feeling of not feeling is horrible. All I ever did was try to survive. But that lack of feeling made me kind of want to stop surviving. Fu explained. Oh God, I just thought about feeling nothing. I can't even comprehend what that would or I guess wouldn't feel like, and that is fucking terrifying. It's like thinking about not existing. You just can't. You know, I thought having Fu's quirk would be cool, but now. But when I met Kiba, she was just so, well, Kiba. She's just fun to be around, fun to watch. She finally made me feel things again. Fu explained. So we stayed with each other. Kiba would help me steal meat and I would give Kiba my blood. We were still homeless and had to endure all the things that went with it, but it was so much better than before. If only just because I actually wanted to survive again. And it was all thanks to Kiba. Which is why she means so much to me. Kiba meanwhile was faintly blushing from the sheer amount of genuine heartfelt praise Fu was giving her. She of course turned away from the camera in a bad attempt to hide it. Wholesome. Alien Queen, I can now die content. Invisible Girl, good because we now all have diabetes. Queen Crimson, so worth it. My teeth rotted away from all the sweetness and fell out, who needed them? Lady Kiba is blushing. But eventually we weren't able to get enough meat. So I went on another meat rampage. Fu continued. But I got really lucky that day. Dad, Kay, and Eri were selling some homemade food in the park and the hero Fat Gum just happened to be there. I bit into him, but since he's Fat Gum, it didn't do any damage and Dad gave me all the meat he had nearby to get me back to normal. Which then let me give Kiba my blood. After that, Dad took us in. And we never had to steal or worry about starving again. And I'm forever thankful for that. Fu. Izuka couldn't help but also feel a little touched. Another happy ending. Thanks, caretaker. Feed Dad hungry boy. With most of the backstories done, Izuka looked over to the last two. Sanson and Yonda. Do you two want to share or should we move on? It's okay if you don't. There's nothing wrong with that. After a few moments of contemplation, Sanson made a decision. When I was born, I acquilled my mama. Because I'm weight of acid. And my birth daddy didn't want me. So he gave me to someone but they didn't want me either. So they kept mouthing me around. Then one day they asked me to go in a drawer and they twapped me inside. I couldn't get it. Or mouth. Then he threw me into garbage on the beach. And I was there so SWO long. A whole year. Wait, what the fuck? Alien Queen, X-fucking-Q's me? She was trapped in a bottle for a whole fucking year. Winner. We have a winner for the most tragic backstory. Fuck the species. That is actually worse than prison. Netza shuddered at the idea. A whole year. In a jar. And you couldn't move. Many of the other children grimaced at the idea as well. But then Daddy freed me. And took me in like all the other kids. Sanson started moving around even more than usual as if to show off her freedom, bouncing around everyone. Okay, so the order of most tragic backstories is Sanson at number 1. Kay at number 2. Fu at number 3. Lady Kiba at number 4. And the rest of them are pretty similar so they can share number 5. That seems about right. So is Daddaria just going around finding small abandoned children and saying, this is mine now? Uravity, it's more like small abandoned children kept finding him and saying, this is mine now. Izuka turned to Yonda. Yonda, you don't have to if you don't want to. Yonda had mixed feelings. On one hand, she didn't quite feel like sharing. On the other, literally everyone else had already shared and they had shared some pretty harsh past. Some worse than hers. She wanted to feel like she was part of the family. Father, you can tell them. Yonda knew that at the very least she didn't need to be the one to explain it. All right. Izuka turned to the camera. Yonda was born to neglectful parents. They fed her and gave her a place to sleep, but they barely paid any attention to her. And never really loved her. However, little did they know. Yonda was born with her quirk. At first, everyone just thought she was deaf. Until she started speaking. And when she started speaking, that's when she also revealed that her father was cheating on her mother. After that, things took a downward turn. Her parents of course got divorced after the incident and her mother became an alcoholic and started blaming her for the divorce. And what's worse is that she could hear every thought going through their heads while this happened, and since she can hear thoughts through walls, it was just a never-ending hate and vitriol with a lot of it aimed at her. You know, I always knew that being able to hear people's thoughts would be more trouble than it's worth, but this is like worst-case scenario. Should there be a license to be parents? Because this is not okay. Earphones, oh god, it's like my quirk but worse. And constantly surrounded by people who hate me. Fortunately, her mother at least had the sense to hand her over to DC. Izuku explained. And while that was better for her, it still wasn't great. Because the people who were taking care of her didn't like their jobs or her very much, and since she can hear thoughts, she could hear exactly how much they didn't like her. Yonda could remember all the cruel comments thrown her way by both her parents. Ruinous child. Life destroyer. Nosy bitch. Honestly, her time with DC wasn't much better than before. Except she finally got to have a TV, and this was introduced to the concept of family. A real family. Something she had been robbed of and desperately wanted. Poor Yonda. Quirks that you can't turn off really are the worst. She heard Kei think. Can I set bad parents on fire? Is what Netsu was currently thinking. Which was concerning, but Yonda was confident that those thoughts wouldn't go anywhere. Similarly, Kiba was thinking as a hero. Can I rip bad parents apart? I wish I could make something that would symbolize family. Shiruka thought, which made Yonda smile a bit. She couldn't see what people were thinking, but she imagined that she was visualizing clothing designs. Sanson was currently bouncing around like a furious slime. Stupid. DC. I'll melt them. Yonda would think that the abundance of violent thoughts among her family would be problematic. If she weren't touched, that they were for her sake. I feel so bad that I feel nothing while listening to this. Wait, she can hear this. Sorry, Yonda. Muted emotions, and honestly there are so many sad backstories I can't really feel anything but a bit of sympathy. Fu apologized. Yonda gave him a look that indicated that it was fine. She wasn't looking for pity anyway. Are you all right? She heard Otoko ask her. Yonda nodded, mustering up a smile at her big green friend. If you need to talk, then we can talk. Otoko reminded her. All right, so that's everyone, Izuku said before looking at the clock. And it seems the time's up too. Ah, it appears the question took up quite a bit of time. So I hope you were all satisfied with it. Kiba addressed her audience. Ah, it's already over. I didn't get to ask a question. I want more Kiba. Now. This will not be the last time such an event will transpire. And perhaps next time we will be joined by more of my wondrous family. Kiba said to placate the audience. Now, until next time, my minions. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe, share the video, and support the original writer. See you in the next video.